You are listening to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, where you will find inspirational conversations and actionable takeaways to master yourself and improve your life. I am your host, 𝘁ᗸ𝗄𝘆𝗲, and my mission is to inspire you to grow, stand out, and take action towards a purposeful and fulfilling life. In each episode, you will find actionable takeaways that you can implement right now, so make sure you follow the podcast to get them as soon as they are released. I remind my regular listeners here that for a short while the podcast will have one episode a week rather than two. So this is a solo episode today, and actually it is the first one since the podcast went to having one episode a week instead of two. So that's about just over a month ago, and as a small observation here, so far I haven't had any real feedback against this decision or this course of action. For the time being, I will carry on with one episode a week and reassess again in a few weeks' time and see what is the best course of action. Today, what I will do in this solo episode is a concept I saw one of my previous guests doing in her own podcast, and that's Amy Rowlinson, who I spoke with in episode 232. So what she does is every 5 or so interviews that she does in her podcasts, she records then a solo episode where she shares her own reflections with actions. That's how she calls it. So she breaks down the episodes, what she has learned and what actions one can take as a result of that conversation. So when I saw her doing that, I thought, what a brilliant idea. And in this episode, I'm going to do something similar, my own version of this reflection with action. And thank you, Amy, for giving me the inspired idea, actually. Today I'm going to go back to the previous 5 episodes, and actually it's from since the podcast went to one episode a week, so it's a quite timely recording of this, and the first one is episode 240. That was with 𝘁ᗸ𝗻𝗄𝘆𝘀, the author of the autobiography of Mark Victor Hansen called Relentless. In case you don't know who Mark Victor Hansen is, he's one of the 2 co-creators, the other one being Jack Canfield, of Chicken Soup for the Soul, the book and the brand, which is in the Guinness Book of World Records for selling 500 million books. I had the pleasure of reading the book Relentless even before its public launch as a preparation for the interview, and that's an interesting fact in itself, because you get to see the version that is not quite polished, not 100% finished yet, which I personally find it fascinating. The book is called Relentless for a reason. And what I found by reading the book and further on with the podcast conversation with 𝘁ᗸ𝗻𝗄𝘆𝘀, the author, was this inspirational story of overcoming adversities. And one lesson I got in particular was the importance of having this burning desire towards something. He says that each of us has a superstar talent within us, but you won't discover it if you don't try. And when you have that burning desire, work full on it as much as you can. The other lesson was asking yourself, what do I really want? This is a question that each of us should ponder on and ask the question, what do I really want? And allow answers to be received. The answer to that question is deep within us. Another reflection or realization from that podcast was about, that phrase that says successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do. An example I read about in the book was that during the promotion of the book, he was doing 7 or 8 interviews, radio or TV interviews every day, and he would even, because of the time difference in the USA, he would wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning to do an interview at a radio station that was in another part of the country, and that was going on every day for months. This determination, this tenacity, the book is full of examples like this. And I believe also that it demonstrates that these people who have reached this kind of level of success, they have taken the uncomfortable action, have done the difficult thing in order to be there. We tend sometimes to see the end result, but not the struggles one had to overcome to reach there. And this book is full of these examples. It's very inspirational. The last thing I will mention from this conversation was something that kind of also refers to my Greek heritage. It was discussed in the podcast. It's something that Socrates said, and his student Plato recorded, that the unexamined life is not worth living. And in the conversation, 𝘁=𝗸𝗲 spoke about how everyone should write their autobiography. For so many different reasons, both that have to do for yourself and reviewing and examining your life, but also for the others who will read and understand and benefit from your learnings and your wisdom. It is a really fascinating concept. I have been keeping journals on and off since I was in my 20s, but very consistently, daily, the last 6 years since I started my personal development journey. And the idea of the autobiography has been in my mind for a while, and I'm going to do it at some time. And right now I'm just sharing my thoughts out loud here. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. It just felt like something to share. Right, so the second episode I'm going to discuss today is the one with Johnny 𝘁=𝗲, episode 241, where we discussed the art of masculinity and how to be consistent with who you truly are as a man. Johnny came from a military background, and he became very aware of, as he called it, the quote-unquote pervasive, toxic alpha male masculinity that men adopted in those circles. And he discussed how most of us have built an expectation in our mind as to what a man is and how to show up every day. But the thing is that masculinity is both biologically and socially influenced. The standards of masculinity vary across different cultures, even historical periods. So defining some specific attributes and behaviors and roles as masculinity is clearly wrong. You can't fit everyone in. In that episode, Johnny also talked about the emotional side of masculinity, and there is certainly a very actionable thing that came out of this. We were talking about why men typically struggle with expressing their emotions, And the concept of emotional literacy or emotional vocabulary was discussed. So this entails one simple thing which I also do in my morning routine. I use an emotional vocabulary sheet every morning to record how I'm feeling. So the one that I use has about 160 words. I have printed it in a small page in my journal, and it is divided into two categories. One is the, let's say, the quote-unquote positive, and the other is the quote-unquote negative emotions. So for the positive ones, there are 5, let's say, subcategories: peaceful, loving, happy, playful, interested. What's really beautiful from this exercise is this. Let's say that you do feel peaceful that morning, right? That's the overall, let's say, sensation, emotion that you feel when you do the exercise. On that column of peaceful, you can further fine-tune the emotion and put a precise word that exactly describes it. So, for example, the one that I use under the word peaceful, it also has calm, content, satisfied, serene, relaxed, fulfilled, relieved, quiet, carefree, centered, refreshed, free, blissful, expansive, mellow, equanimous. If you can imagine using this list every day to express your emotion, how you're feeling, and record it, and keep in mind that the example I gave was just one of the categories, the overall feeling peaceful, because you could be feeling sad or fearful or happy or apathetic. So there are 160. The one that I use, by the way, is one of my previous guests, 𝘁ส์𝗸𝗏𝗄𝘆. So he has created this emotional vocabulary builder, and I will link in the show notes. You can download this for free from his website, so you will find it in the show notes. And the purpose of doing this exercise, apart from being more reflective and looking inwards, is that by practicing, by naming the exact emotion, you get better awareness of it. So understanding your emotion is really the purpose of this practice. And one more action that came out of that episode, again, it very useful, I would say essential really in someone's routine. So he said, take 10-15 minutes of silence in the morning. And he didn't say meditation, he said silence. He said for 10-15 minutes, silence, away from your phone, away from, dealing with your kids, your spouse, your computer, work. Just 10-15 minutes in the morning, and the morning specifically because that is the calibration for how the day is going to go. So allow yourself 10-15 minutes of silence. Might just be sitting outside, drinking your coffee and staring at the view, but give yourself that time, not talking, not listening to anything, just observing what is going on in your head, in your heart, in your body. Give that to yourself. Do that as a daily practice. The third episode to discuss today is episode 242 with James Martin, who is a pioneer for dyslexics in business. What's truly fascinating about James is that He doesn't read or write, yet despite that he has become a self-made multi-millionaire and he has created a business empire. We talked about dyslexia. He talked about the superpower of dyslexia. That's how he called it. And he actually backed up this rather provocative comment. It is a conversation that it would probably be unfair if I try to sum it up into a few sentences. So what I will say instead, if you have dyslexia or if you know someone with dyslexia, then most certainly listen to episode 242 with James Martin. Yes, it is certainly a must listen if this is a topic that resonates with you. And let's carry on with the fourth episode. That was episode 243 with Paul Levitin, about overcoming self-doubt and being a happy, healthy human. Paul is a mindset, confidence and nutrition coach and personal trainer, and the conversation revolved a lot around imposter syndrome, self-doubt and self-sabotage. And one thing in particular I took from the conversation was the distinction that when we are presented with a situation, with any situation, the distinction between is this particular situation a fact or a feeling. And many times we interpret feelings, our own personal feelings, as facts on a situation, and we act accordingly. So this distinction is the key, and a key learning coming from that actually is that the root of all discomfort and unhappiness stems from expectations. And Paul went on saying that when we expect things to be in a certain way, for example, I was expecting to be rich, or I was expecting to be thin, or I was expecting to have kids by that age. These are all feelings. They are not facts. And we must understand that saying I should be healthier or I should have more money, should anything, is the same thing as saying that the sun should set at midnight rather than 9 o'clock or the time it sets now. You are arguing with the reality of the universe. So I believe this is a great lesson in accepting a situation and not being attached to the outcome, to the expectation that things will unfold the way that we want, because that's outside of our control. The more we can focus on our own personal actions and less on external outcomes, that is the key. And the fifth and last episode, which I will cover today, is episode 244, The Healing Power of Hemp and How CBD Oil Promotes the Harmony of Your Body, with Noah Hammond Terrell. This is a topic that I really wanted to know more about. All of a sudden, maybe the last 10 or 15 years or so, there has been so much being spoken about CBD oil. I mean, in the UK where I live, there are all these shops popping up, like CBD dispensary, and there is, some skepticism, first of all, around this, which is normal, but also some information which is not accurate. So in this podcast conversation with Noah, he went through in detail about the benefits of CBD oil in specific, and he tied it to the harmonious functioning of our body in this modern stressful world that is, the most stressful that it's ever been. And he also described exactly what things to look for when you go out shopping for CBD oil, so that you know that you get quality oil that actually does provide the benefits it is meant to. He also made a great offer for the listeners of the podcast with a 25% discount, and you will find this link in the show notes. So if you are not yet aware of what CBD oil is and what it can do for you, then please listen to the previous episode, 244, and educate yourself, and hopefully you might be convinced to start implementing CBD in your life, in your routine. And these were my reflections today. The first time that I do this particular kind of consolidation, shall we say, of reflecting on the previous 5 episodes. Once again, I have borrowed this idea from Amy Rowlinson, who was my podcast guest on episode 232, and she does this in her own podcast, which is called Focus on Why. So thanks again, Amy. I hope you find today's episode useful. Again, for a little while longer, I will carry on doing one episode every week, every Monday, and I will also mix up with some solo episodes like today as well. I appreciate you very much for listening, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the podcast always, because in the end, I'm doing the podcast for you. You are listening to it right now, and I would very much appreciate your thoughts with the direction that it's heading or what it has done for you. And one last thing, talking about consolidation episodes. If you are a regular listener, you might have seen these consolidation episodes that I was doing. I've done about 20 of them. I have created an ebook that contains the best actionable takeaways from the most important one of those episodes, and you can download that for free if you go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com, and right at the top you will see a link to click and download the ebook. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, stand out, don't fit in.